The fluorescent lights in the clinic waiting room flickered like dying stars, casting harsh shadows across Ma Ye-chan's tear-stained cheeks. She clutched the grainy ultrasound image in her trembling hands, staring at the tiny blob that would change everything. At 22, working double shifts at a diner in rural Nebraska, she barely had enough money for rent, let alone raising a child. The father had vanished the moment she'd told him, leaving behind only empty promises and unpaid bills. Her phone buzzed with another overdue notice, and Ma Ye felt the weight of the world crushing down on her shoulders. In that moment of desperation, scrolling through her phone contacts with blurry vision, she stumbled upon a name she hadn't thought about in years, David Park. They'd been study partners in community college before he'd transferred to some fancy university on the East Coast. She remembered him as quiet, brilliant, always scribbling business ideas in the margins of his textbooks while everyone else partied. Ma Ye had been one of the few people who'd actually listened to his dreams, encouraged him when others rolled their eyes at his ambitious talk about changing the world. Without thinking, driven by a mixture of loneliness and nostalgia, Ma Ye took a photo of the ultrasound and sent it to David's old number with a simple message: "Remember when you said you wanted to help people someday? This is my someday." Scared but excited to meet this little one, she hit send before she could second-guess herself, then immediately regretted it. What was she thinking? David probably had a new number by now, or worse, he'd think she was asking for money from some guy she barely knew from college. Ma Ye stuffed the phone into her purse and tried to forget about the impulsive message as she walked home to her cramped studio apartment above the Chinese restaurant where the smell of grease had permanently seeped into the walls. 3,000 miles away, in a glass-walled office overlooking Manhattan, David Park stared at his phone screen in disbelief. The last 5 years had been a whirlwind of venture capital, IPOs, and acquisitions that had transformed him from a struggling immigrant's son into one of the youngest billionaires in America. His tech company, which started as a simple app to help small businesses manage their finances, had grown into a global empire, but success had come at a cost: long hours, failed relationships, and a growing sense of isolation despite being surrounded by hundreds of employees and advisors. He remembered Ma Ye clearly. While other classmates had dismissed his ideas as unrealistic, she'd sit with him in the library until closing time, helping him refine his business plans and reminding him that every great company started with someone crazy enough to believe they could make a difference. She'd been working 2 jobs even then, sending money home to help her sick mother, yet she always found time to encourage others. When he'd gotten the scholarship to Columbia, she'd been the first person to congratulate him, hugging him tight and whispering, "Don't forget us little people when you're running the world." David looked at the ultrasound image again, his heart aching as he imagined Ma Ye facing this alone. He'd kept tabs on her over the years through social media, watching from afar as she struggled to make ends meet after her mother passed away. He'd wanted to reach out, to help, but his lawyers and PR team had trained him to be cautious about reconnecting with people from his past. Too many people had tried to exploit their old relationships once his success became public knowledge, but this wasn't about money or opportunism. This was Ma Ye, genuine, selfless Ma Ye, sharing one of the most vulnerable moments of her life with someone she trusted. David made a decision that would have given his security team heart attacks. He picked up his phone and called her directly. Ma Ye was heating up leftover ramen when her phone rang with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, assuming it was another debt collector, but something made her pick up. "Ma Ye, it's David." David Park. The spoon fell from her hand, clattering into the cheap plastic bowl. "David, how did you? I mean, I didn't think you'd actually get my message." "I got it." His voice was deeper now, more confident, but she could still hear traces of the shy boy she'd known. "Ma Ye, I need to ask you something, and please be honest with me. Are you okay? Really okay?" The kindness in his voice broke something inside her, and suddenly she was crying again, ugly sobs that she'd been holding back for weeks. "No," she whispered. "I'm not okay. I'm scared, David. I don't know how I'm going to do this alone." "You're not alone," he said firmly. "Not anymore." "Ma Ye, I want to help, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "David, if this is about money, I wasn't asking for a..." "It's not about money." "Well, Not entirely. It's about something bigger than that. David took a deep breath. I've been successful, Ma. Yeah, more successful than I ever imagined. But I've also forgotten why I wanted success in the first place. You reminded me tonight. You reminded me that success means nothing if you don't use it to lift up the people who lifted you up first. Ma Ye was quiet, trying to process what he was saying. I'm sending a jet, David continued. Tomorrow morning. There's a small airport about an hour from where you live. I've already checked. I want you to come to New York. I want to take care of you and the baby, but more than that, I want to offer you something better than charity. I want to offer you a partnership. A partnership? Ma Yu's voice was barely a whisper. I've been looking for someone to head up a new foundation I'm starting. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who has the heart to really help people, not just write checks. The position comes with a salary that will ensure you and your child never have to worry about money again, plus full healthcare, housing assistance, everything you need. But more importantly, it comes with the chance to help thousands of other people who are facing the same struggles you're facing right now. Ma Ye sat down hard on her second-hand couch, her mind reeling. David, I can't accept charity. I won't be someone's pity project. This isn't charity, Ma Ye. This is me remembering what you taught me in that community college library, that the best business plans are the ones that solve real problems for real people. You've lived those problems. You understand them in a way that I, despite all my success, never could. I need someone like you, someone who's been there, to help me build something that actually matters. Over the next hour, David outlined his vision for the foundation, a comprehensive support system for single mothers, pregnant women in crisis, and families struggling with poverty. Not just financial assistance, but job training, childcare, healthcare, housing support, everything needed to break the cycle of poverty. Ma Ye would oversee the entire operation, working with a team of social workers, counselors, and community organizers to ensure the foundation's programs actually reached the people who needed them most. You'd be perfect for this, Ma Ye. You have the education, the life experience, and most importantly, the heart. Remember how you used to tell me that my business ideas were good, but they needed to have soul? You could be that soul. Ma Ye closed her eyes, imagining a life where she didn't have to choose between buying groceries and paying rent, where her child could grow up with opportunities she never had. But more than that, she imagined being able to help other women avoid the desperation she'd felt tonight. If I say yes, she said slowly, I want to do this right. I want to build something that lasts, something that really changes lives. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The next morning, Ma Ye stood on the tarmac of the small regional airport, a duffel bag containing all her important possessions slung over her shoulder. The private jet looked impossibly sleek and expensive, like something from a movie. She'd called in sick to work, given her landlord notice, and made arrangements for her few pieces of furniture to be donated to the local shelter. Everything had happened so fast it felt like a dream. David met her at the airport in New York, and Ma Ye was struck by how much he'd changed. The awkward boy she'd known had been replaced by a confident man in an expensive suit, but when he smiled at her, she saw glimpses of her old study partner. You came, he said, and she heard relief in his voice. You sent a jet, she replied, and they both laughed. Over the following weeks, Ma Ye threw herself into learning about David's foundation plans. She worked with architects to design welcoming spaces, collaborated with social workers to develop comprehensive support programs, and used her own experiences to identify gaps in existing services. David gave her complete creative control, trusting her instincts even when they conflicted with conventional wisdom. The foundation's first center opened 6 months later in Ma Ye's hometown in Nebraska. Ma Ye stood in the bright, cheerful lobby, her hand resting on her growing belly, watching as the first clients were welcomed by a team of counselors and support staff. A young woman about Ma Ye's age sat nervously in the waiting area, clutching paperwork for the foundation's job training program. Ma Ye recognized the look in her eyes at the same mixture of hope and fear she'd felt the night she'd sent the desperate text message. Excuse me, Ma Ye said, approaching the woman gently. I'm Ma Ye Chen, the director here. Is this your first visit? The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "I lost my job when I got pregnant. I've been living in my car for 2 weeks. Someone at the diner told me you might be able to help." Maya sat down beside her, remembering another diner, another desperate night. "We're going to take care of you," she said softly. "All of you. That's what we're here for." As Maya walked the woman to her appointment, she felt her baby kick, as if agreeing with the promise she'd just made. David's voice echoed in her memory. "Success means nothing if you don't use it to lift up the people who lifted you up first." Maya had been lifted up, and now it was her turn to do the lifting. The foundation would go on to help thousands of women and families across the country, but it all started with one desperate message, one act of trust, and 2 people who remembered that true success is measured not in dollars, but in the lives you touch along the way. That night, Maya sent David a text with a photo of the foundation's first day in action. "Remember when you said you wanted to change the world?" she wrote. "I think we're off to a pretty good start." His response came immediately, "We're just getting started. Thank you for reminding me why I wanted to succeed in the first place." In the margins of Maya's daily planner, she wrote the same words David used to scribble in his college textbooks: "Dreams don't work unless you do." But now she added her own amendment, "And dreams work best when you share them with others." The foundation's motto, painted in elegant script above the entrance of every center, captured the spirit that had brought them together. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is offer it. Maya's daughter was born on a snowy December morning, and David was the first person Maya called with the news. "She's beautiful," Maya whispered into the phone, exhausted but radiant. "And she's going to grow up in a world where people help each other." "She's going to grow up helping build that world," David replied, just like her mother. Years later, when reporters asked David about the inspiration behind his foundation, he would always tell the same story about a brave young woman who reached out in her darkest moment and reminded him that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the connections we make and the lives we change. And when they asked Maya about her journey from struggling single mother to successful nonprofit director, she would smile and say, "Sometimes all it takes is one person who believes in you to change everything." The trick is learning to believe in others the same way.